Most parents are asking the wrong question. They ask, what's the best self-defense for my child? Some build confidence, some build resilience, and there's one that's really good at practical self-defense. So today I'm ranking all the major martial arts for kids, and I'm going to go through the pros and cons and let you know what one I would choose if it was for my kid. I've coached martial arts to kids for over a decade. I've worked with over hundreds of kids. I've actually competed in martial arts myself, and I've been through this journey, started at a young age, and I've realized what actually creates confidence in kids. Point number one, what martial arts actually creates structure and discipline. Now, when you hear martial arts and you think about enrolling your kid, you're probably thinking about these two: karate and taekwondo. Now let's talk about the pros of karate. Karate has a great structure. It has a clear respect boundary between student and instructor. It has a clear belt system that allows your kids to progressively grow, build confidence, and stick towards working out a goal for over a long period of time. Now the cons. The level of the quality they actually receive varies heavily between different academies. From my experience, most karate schools focus more on form than actual practical application. So a basic overview is that it's really good for structure. It creates solid discipline. And you have a clear learning from an instructor that we learn to respect. There's a belt system that allows us to grow and work towards an overarching goal, but it maybe is not as practical for actual self-defense and real life situation. Will your kid become more confident doing karate? Yes. Will it help them physically defend themselves in a real life situation? Potentially. Now we're looking at the pros of Taekwondo. Taekwondo has a lot of good benefits. First off, we're going to look at building a really good range of flexibility and athleticism. I think Taekwondo for young kids is a really good sport, a really good martial arts to introduce them to if they want to potentially move over to other sports eventually. Taekwondo is like the gymnastics of martial arts. It creates such a good strength, balance, coordination, flexibility that's so transferable to other sports and physical endeavors down the line. It's fun, it's energetic, there's a clear ranking system just like karate, and there's also a respect and discipline level. Now the cons is very limited in self-defense application. We're looking at a lot of fancy kicking, a lot of athleticism, but not a lot of practical defending. And it's also got a heavy sport focus. So basic overview is that it's going to be fun, it's engaging, you're building a lot of practical physical skills that will help them down the line, but in terms of actual self-defense, it is very limited on the application that will help them in a real life situation. Point two, now we're talking about martial arts that builds toughness and resilience. First off, we're looking at boxing. Now boxing pros, it's great for fitness. It teaches kids to be composed under pressure. And this is going to be a quick confidence builder. Boxing is one of those sports where it's a little bit gritty. The gyms don't really have that soft approach. It's got a little bit more old school martial arts vibes. But like I said, you're going to get a kid that builds confidence really quickly, becomes fit, and it's a very active, high in cardiovascular activity. But there are some cons as well. And the biggest one, punching isn't always the answer. This, in terms of self-defense, punching can actually get us in more trouble than it can help us. When we talk about the lawful part of self-defense, when you actually start to look at punching, that's an offensive strike. It's very hard to keep a strike in a defensive situation. Also, it's very limited. We're just looking at how we can use our hands in terms of martial arts, and it's very limited in the terms of like grappling and how we can practically defend ourselves as soon as someone gets a hold of us. Overall, boxing is great. It builds some mental resistance, physical fitness, and it's quite fun, builds the confidence up. But if not taught by good instructors, sometimes the lesson can be lost in terms of self-defense, that punching isn't always the answer. Next up is Muay Thai. Now this has incredible discipline, especially if you're able or lucky enough to go to more traditional style. It's full body development. It's called the art of 8 limbs because we're kicking, punching, kneeing, and elbowing. There is a bit more toughness, a bit more grit, just like boxing. But one thing that it misses, especially for kids martial arts, is there's missing a reward system. There's no belt structure, there's no clear goals and milestones that help the encouragement for the kids along their journey. And it can be quite repetitive. Even though are using multiple tools, it's about doing the simple things right over and over, which can get a little bit more boring for the kids. Even though are using multiple tools, it's about doing the simple things right over and over, which can get a little bit more boring for the kids. So overall, Muay Thai is great, especially if it's all you have around. It's going to create a nice, good variety of physical fitness because you're using legs and arms. It's not just limited to boxing. In terms of self-defense, this is quite practical, but it is still missing the gap of grappling. And this brings us to wrestling. This is probably, in my opinion, going to develop the most resilience and mental fortitude. It is such a great tool for self-defense because you're able to control someone up close in the grappling situation, which most physical alterations end up in a grappling situation. You end up tied up with that person. You're able to control them without causing physical harm, without punching or kicking. So it's much more aligned with defending yourself as opposed to attacking or being on the offense. It teaches a huge amount of body control, how we can control our body, and then actually goes into controlling somebody else. And also for parents, this might be a good little point to think about, is that there's no strikes involved. So your kid's not going to get punched or kicked at all. Now, the cons is wrestling isn't as available everywhere. In Australia, wrestling academies are few and far between. There's no clear belt system for the development. And it also does take away a bit of the variety of the kicking and the punching, which can be quite interesting to the kids. It does create a little bit more fun to have that variety. Now, point number 3, which is the martial arts most parents overlooked, and where I would be adding my kid, is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is fantastic for self-defense. It teaches control over aggression. It has a wide variety of physical moves that keep it fun and engaging, and it's one of those things that you're never going to know all the techniques, and it's a constant cycle of learning and developing. Along with the learning and developing cycle, you're rewarded by a clear and structured belt system that has a lot of milestones to keep the kids encouraged and engaged in the process. There's constant confident wins by overcoming difficult situations, and has a unique problem solving under pressure. And the biggest difference is in the grappling martial arts is that striking is generally taught as a way to hurt somebody. It is an offensive tool. But grappling, we're learning how to control somebody. And from teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's nothing like seeing a kid's face light up when they're able to sweep somebody, submit an opponent, or actually control somebody else. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gives such a unique ability to overcome adversity because what happens is they're constantly overcoming challenges by people actually resisting. This is the element that's often missing in karate, doing our techniques in a line, like in a shadow. Even in boxing, a lot of the kids' work is on the pads and on the bag. But jiu-jitsu you can't do by yourself. When you do jiu-jitsu, you grab it with a partner and you get that physical interaction straight away. You're working with resistance and you're overcoming challenges on day one. So final ranking for discipline, the top 3 would be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Karate and Taekwondo. For resilience, we're going to put wrestling, boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. For self-defense, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling and Muay Thai. So if you're trying to decide where to start and where to put your kid into what martial arts, don't ask what martial arts is best for kids. Ask, what do I want my kid to learn? If your goal is confidence, resilience, and practical self-defense, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu would be my first recommendation. And most gyms offer free trials, so if they don't vibe with it, you can always try a different type of martial arts. Now, what martial arts does your kid do? Or which one are you considering? Drop it in the comments. I'd like to hear. And don't forget, if you found any value in this video, like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. I'll see you next time.